YouTube. So you find yourself in a survival situation and there's nothing really else around but some trees. So what kind of things are edible on trees? First of all, there's a large amount of tannin, Tannin, it's spelled tannin. And this is that bitter taste that you taste if you were to try to eat raw acorns, for example. If you ever try to eat them raw, like the squirrels do, or even like the deer, you're going to get that, and sometimes it's so bitter it'll make you really nauseous and maybe even vomit. But what the Indians used to do was they would take those acorns, for example, and soak them in cold water for sometimes 2 to 3 days, or just put them in a little bag and put them in a stream, and that cold water rushing over it, it breaks down the tannin and kind of clears it out. And then they would take it and they would roast them. So that's an option there, is to use some of the nuts from trees. But in terms of bark, though, the outer bark of most trees, though, have very high amounts of tannin, and it's not recommended at all to eat. But what you can do is use the inner bark, which the inner bark is the layer between the outer and inner core of the bark. And so with this, you can actually eat a lot of them, various trees, raw or cooked. But they're typically most palatable in the spring. And in the northern areas, though, you can find a lot of various trees that you can make flour out of this inner bark. And from more particular, though, from like pine trees, aspen, birch, willow, and cottonwoods. Of course, it's good to know and how to identify those trees before you get out in the woods and get lost. Now, pine trees, for example, in their inner bark, it has a pretty high level of vitamin C. This is going to be, very essential in some ways because besides your B complex vitamins, vitamin C is going to be really helpful under stress. Your body's under a stress load. You definitely need those vitamin C's because they're water-soluble vitamins and they get burned up pretty fast, just like your B vitamins when you're under stress. So you need to replace those. Gums and resins from trees can also be eaten. But especially these trees, though, that have the sap that collects on the outside. So you may want to avoid some of the trees that don't ever leak sap. You want to look for the ones that are more outward, that you can see from just looking at the bark, for example, that you can see sap or something. And so those kind of particular trees with the outward of resins and sap would be like your palms, your Nipa, I think it's pronounced Nipa, Nipa trees, sagos, the burry, sugar trees, coconut trees, and fishtail trees. I may have butchered some of those names, but you get the idea. There's a lot of the palm trees in particular, basically. There's a lot of those, and those are excellent sources for gums and resins that you can use. And once again, you can eat those pretty much, just directly if you had to. But different times of the years have different productions for different products from different trees. So it's good to know your area, good to know how to identify trees. And even in your backpack, especially your bug out bag, you definitely should consider maybe a wildlife handbook or an identification type of chart for plants and trees to help you get and navigate through the woodlands in case you really were desperate and needed some resources. Once again, thanks for all the comments. We'll catch you real soon.